Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the launch of CGIAR Multifunctional Landscapes at Science Week. My name is Gina, and I am a communicator with CGIAR Multifunctional Landscapes. It is an absolute pleasure to have all of us here today to join us for this really special occasion. And this session will take us through the science behind multifunctional landscapes, explore the global partnerships that support it, and share the innovative work happening across our areas of work. I am excited to say that we have such a dynamic lineup of speakers and contributors today. So yeah, it truly promises to be a very exciting session. As we begin, let me just walk you through what to expect during our session this morning. First, we'll hear some welcome remarks from Ismaani Eluafi, who is CGIAR's Executive Managing Director. And then it will be followed by a contextual framing from Marcela Quintero on multifunctional landscapes. We will then have a presentation by the Director and Deputy Director of CGIAR Multifunctional Landscapes, who will take us through the program. After that, we'll hear reactions from key experts and brief reflections from our partners. We will then move into our panel discussions, starting with insights from the leads of our 7 interconnected areas of work. Finally, we'll wrap up with some key takeaways and closing remarks. Without further ado, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome CGIAR's Executive Managing Director, Ismaani Eluafi, for her welcome remarks. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and good morning. I feel really taller today. Now I know there is a step down there. Is it good? Shall I keep it? Yeah. Okay. So good morning, colleagues. Good morning, partners. Welcome to this very important session during CGIAR Science Week. Thank you for your strong engagement throughout the week as we launch our Portfolio 2025-2030, our science program, and our accelerators. Today, we are very proud to launch the CGIAR Multifunctional Landscapes science program, which is a flagship initiative that reflects our shared ambition to transform landscapes and agri-food systems. We are at a critical moment. Agri-food systems are under massive pressure. If current unsustainable trends continue, we will need to produce about 70% more food by 2050 to meet demand, putting even more strain on natural systems. And that 70%, it's not across the board. There is a very interesting study from IFPRI that shows you need about 95% here in Africa, whereas you need only about 2% in China. 2% in Europe. So it's not across the board. It shows also that we need to do that production more only in certain parts of the world, particularly in Africa, in Southeast Asia, and in the MENA region. Yet we are already seeing the cost. Agriculture is behind 80% of deforestation, up to 80% of nutrient pollution, and has degraded 85% of wetlands. And wetlands particularly are super important because their capacity of carbon sequestration is amazing and should be maintained. It's also driving up to 70% of biodiversity loss and contributing heavily to climate change. These issues are deeply connected. We must move beyond siloed thinking and embrace systemic and integrated solutions. That's where this program comes in. The Multifunctional Landscape Science Program is a key part of the CGIAR portfolio, and it marks a shift from isolated field-level efforts to coordinated landscape-scale action, and from a productivity-first mindset to sustainable system-based approaches. And I like this one very much. I'm going to repeat it. It makes really a shift from isolated field-level efforts to coordinated landscape-scale action, and from a productivity mindset that we have been carrying for the last almost 80 years to sustainable system-based approaches. It supports a transition to agroecological, nature-positive and regenerative practices, approaches that restore biodiversity, boost livelihoods, and strengthen climate resilience. The vision, healthy, diverse landscape that work for people and the planet, from source to sea, recognizing the links between land, water, and oceans. This program is about co-creation. It brings together scientific evidence and local knowledge to design context-specific solutions, support inclusive governance, and strengthen landscape-level planning. CGIAR is uniquely placed to lead this. We have decades of experience in complex landscapes, deep cross-disciplinary expertise, and transdisciplinary expertise as well, and trusted partnership in more than 80 countries. This work built on the agroecology, nature-positive livestock and climate initiatives, and draws from successes across the CGIAR, from farmer-managed regeneration in the Sahel, to community seed banks in Asia and Latin America, to participatory rangeland management in East Africa. And the opportunity is massive. Restoring land and aquatic ecosystems could deliver anywhere between $125 to $140 trillion in annual benefits, far more than global GDP. Restoring aquatic system alone could add nearly $50 trillion per year. What we need now is scale and collective action. As we open today's session, I invite you to join us in this effort. Let's move beyond traditional boundaries. Let's invest in science, in collaboration, and in impact. And I believe together we can build landscapes that feed people, restore nature, and protect future generations. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ismahani, for that really exciting welcome remark. I am delighted to welcome Marcela Quintero, who is the Associate Director General for Research Strategy and Innovation at the Alliance of Biodiversity and CIAT. And she's also the Interim Director of Climate Action. So today, Marcela will walk us through the broader context that this program is responding to. Please put your hands together for Marcela.
Thank you very much. Yes, and I like this podium as well. No, thank you very much, and thank you for everyone that has come today. And thank you also, Ismahan, for your words. And I think this program is exactly about that, like going beyond the farm level and trying to go to a different level, still linking with the farm level work, but also keeping it in a scale that is manageable to be able to operationalize integrated approaches like agroecology and nature-positive approaches. So yes, as Ismahan mentioned it, and I was actually invited to provide a little bit of context where we are coming from and where we are going, because I was leading the agroecology initiative. I helped in the initial stages of this program to try to integrate the two initiatives, nature-positive solutions, agroecology, a component of livestock and climate, and also the impact platform on environmental health of the CGIAR. So I think the team, the writing team, and all the teams from the different centers that are contributing to this make a great job on really integrating. So if you see the areas of work of this program are not necessarily exactly the same of what was coming, because they really managed to propose a good integration, and that by integrating in the practice, in the application, those different components, we can then fully implement the integrated approaches behind agroecology and nature positive. Now, when we talk about integration for what, so it's at the center of this program to deliver benefits in terms of food production, but also with benefits for the ecosystems and the biodiversity, combined with equitable livelihoods. So for those of you familiar with the nature positive solutions approach and the agroecology approach, agroecology is very people-centered. and nature positive is very nature-centered. So the idea is to combine the two to be able to deliver these multiple benefits in terms of food, ecosystems, biodiversity, and equitable livelihoods. Now, the other, I think, very good thing is that this is also building not only on approaches, but on actual work on the ground and on partnerships that were initiated 3 years ago, and of course, adding more as required. So one of the nice things this is building upon is on the network of living landscapes that were put together in the agroecology initiative, and then bringing also the other landscapes that were in the nature positive and in the livestock and climate initiatives to try to create this network of living landscapes where we can test these integrated approaches, build evidence on what is working and what is not working, because this is one of the main responsibilities of us as a science organization, to see, okay, where agroecology works, where doesn't work, or the same with the nature positive approaches. So it's building on that network of living landscapes, and also it's building on the evidence that these initiatives start to create in the past 3 years. So before I close, I also would like to mention something very important. As I mentioned, this is also building on the work of the environmental impact platform of the CGIAR. What it means, there were some very key functions in that platform that has to be with how we engage with science in international debates, in dialogues, for example, of the CBD, or even of the Convention on Climate Change. So in that sense, that function remains here in this program to be like this docking station for the CGIAR to speak about what is our contribution to biodiversity and agrobiodiversity conservation and use, for example, and how with multifunctional landscapes we can also contribute to the targets of the climate change agenda. So those functions remain here. And the other thing is that in terms of engagement, then in links with other platforms we were working already to be able to connect our contributions with knowledge and practice to what others outside of the CGIAR are doing on this. So in that sense, it keeps connected to the TPP on agroecology, an important platform that has been put together to bring the different projects that are working on agroecology, share evidence, and then advance the knowledge there. Although it also links with FABLE, that is another important platform that brings together different organizations working on different environmental aspects, especially biodiversity use and benefits. So with this is the context I wanted to provide you, and then with this I would like also to set the floor. But before I go, Ishmahan was saying, oh, you are in climate, you are in landscape, what is the common thread? And then I said, in these past weeks and in this week, we have been kind of seeing more and more where are the linkages. So for example, we see a very good opportunity of start collocating many activities. And in the case of the climate change, and we are going to hear more today from SIG, we want to see how this network of living landscapes can also be the sites for the locally led adaptation work of the Climate Action Program. So this is just to provide an example on how we would like to see how we can interconnect better the programs in the CGIAR from now on. So with this, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Marcela, for that really clear and compelling context. Now, it's my pleasure to welcome Luseged Tamine, who is the director for CGIAR Multifunctional Landscapes, and is the director for the CGIAR Multifunctional Landscapes, and I'm also inviting Jon Smith, who is the interim deputy director for CGIAR Multifunctional Landscapes. Both of them are going to walk us through the program, the science behind the program, and give us like a deeper dive into what we're expecting from this particular program. So.
Good morning, colleagues. Thank you for coming. Sometimes early in the morning, arriving traveling with Nairobi is a bit complicated, so thanks for being here. I also thank Ismahani and Marcela for the key opening remarks, which is, reflect what we are trying to do. So I'll take you through the basic steps within the program, and then Jorn also will go to some examples, and our colleagues who are working across the areas of work will also provide some details along those. So to context, so we are working, as you can see, with a team of experts and also partners who are not here. So these are the writing team and also now the management unit and the area of work leads. As you can see, the well represented, inclusive in many ways, and we have successfully developed the program, and I'm very sure we'll successfully implement together. So these are the colleagues who are dedicating a lot of time and energy to this work. So we can say we have three big problems. One is population growth. Some 3,000 years ago, we were around 60 million people, which is nearly half of the population of the current population of Ethiopia. And 100 years ago, we were about 2 billion. And 50 years ago, 4 billion. So now we are around 8 billion. That means we are providing a lot of pressure, putting a lot of pressure on land. And we have land degradation because of that. We are transforming, changing, and intensifying the land. And that also leads to climate change. So these three are interconnected. One feeds the other. So solving one may not necessarily address the other one. Population change, we may have some policies and so on, but the other two, we can affect them through interventions and solutions. And because of those interlinked problems and challenges, we have already transgressed the planetary boundaries. For example, among the 9, recent evidence shows that we have transgressed 6 of them. So you can see which ones they are. So that means we are affecting the planet, and because we are trying to utilize beyond its capacity. And also, there is a recent publication which shows that we are overusing beyond the supplies that the Earth can provide. If we take 1 year as our supply time, we are finishing the supply within August and September most of the time. That means we are borrowing from the future, which is not possible. So there are these challenges. And also that's the one I said, which humanity is affecting 1 over time faster than 1.75 faster than what is available. And these are examples that will be, that will arrive because of the land degradation and desertification and other issues. Deforestation is one. There is a huge deforestation, which costs up to 20 million in terms of ecosystem loss. Species are at risk, close to 600 million because of species loss, which also affects pollination. Pollinators are key for the vegetables and fruits that we are getting. About 70% of the pollinators are behind the key nutritious food we are getting. Then also greenhouse gas emissions, environmental degradation, nutrition. You can see those figures. The figures may be up and down depending on the sources, but they are high in general. That shows how alarmed we should be on the land degradation and deforestation and other issues that we are facing. Then we need solution. We have to do something. And as Ismail and Marcela indicated, we have plot level engagements, landscape level, national and global processes. So our actions, we think, should be inclusive, and the main entry point that can help us achieve this at the moment can be landscapes. So landscapes are like mosaics of different land use types, ecosystems, environment, and people together. And they are very important because they connect across scale and also in different thematic areas. And within those landscapes, there's a possibility to demonstrate how effectively we can be through creating living landscapes. So our ambition in general, as reflected earlier, is to create resilient landscapes that provide food, nutrition, biodiversity, which are also resilient and also can support controlling emission of greenhouse gas emission. And to achieve those, we have three things that we want to do optimally, not one better than the other: sustainable production of food and feed and so on, and also restoration and regeneration and conservation. So our effort is to not emphasize one over the other, but to optimally, to optimize across the three major areas. And that will be achieved through different options, but the most important will be agroecology, nature positive regenerative solutions, but also we have the restoration conservation efforts. So by agroecology and nature positive, we can more or less achieve what we want to do in the landscapes. So as Marcela mentioned, the landscapes can also serve as operational units to bring us together. You saw the different programs that have been launched so far, and in one way or another, they will operate within or across the landscapes. So we think the landscapes can be an integrating unit, and that is one step we are taking now. With sustainable farming, we have an advanced discussion. With climate action, we have advanced discussion, and we are sure we'll work with others as well. With that, we can bring in the connections more better and efficiently. Then there is experience already. Ismail mentioned some of the numbers. Through landscape restoration and sustainable land management, there is a possibility to achieve huge objectives and goals. For example, we can restore about 2 billion hectares of land through integrated collaboration with different partners, and those can bring up to $76 trillion. Also, through restoring ecosystems and by reducing environmental degradation, we can also reach up to 150 million economic return for the planet. And also there are other figures that we can achieve through restoration of ecosystem services in terms of human well-being. Then there are, so how do we achieve those? What are the examples? Jorn will tell us a bit of the details, but it's about transitioning, agroecological transition. There are sub-debates on agroecology, nature positive, but that's about transitioning from isolated, homogeneous interventions or activities to more diverse, heterogeneous interventions. Through those processes, there are recent publications which demonstrates how that can be achieved by citing examples at different countries. So the idea is more homogeneous plots or fields can undermine the gains we can get because there are limited biodiversity. And biodiversity is crucial in many ways, including the pollinators that I mentioned earlier. So by intervening, the type of intervention we can implement vary from place to place, so it is contextualized. So we don't have one size fit for all solution, but you can contextualize depending upon where we go within the landscape. And also we are emphasizing again our interventions focus on the landscape. Therefore, we can manage the interconnectedness between processes. Then we have some examples on agroecology. So there are several publications based on literature review and meta-analysis. And you can see some of the numbers in terms of positive gains on climate adaptation, and also when integrating agroforestry with cacao, how much it can achieve, more than 2.5 times the one we can do without integrating agroforestry systems. There are also other treatments that have been, so these all are based on literature review of more than 100 and sometimes thousands of papers. There are also agroecology treatments can increase yield more than 63% and so on and so forth. So the idea here is to show that by introducing agroecology and nature positive solutions across the landscape, we can optimize a lot of benefits in terms of climate change mitigation and adaptation, ecosystem service gains, biodiversity, and promoting resilience as well as livelihoods. Then we have also a recent study, which is Nature Food, which will be available very soon, which shows landscape approach and beyond can help us address global problems that connect the land and the sea and the ocean. So this will be released very soon. So that's one of the reasons why we say we try to address from source to ocean. That doesn't mean we have to go from top to end. We can contextualize the size of the study based on what we want to do, but there are demonstrated examples that the ocean, the sea, the land, and aquaculture can also be optimized through this landscape-based approach. Then we have other examples. In a flagship, CGIAR flagship report yesterday, we might have seen the My Farm Trees, which is a very prominent tool we have to support implementing the agroecology and nature positive solutions. So this is very, very good because it enables us tracing across the value chain what we do with trees, from the seedlings to plantings and so on and so forth, including managing incentives and monitoring performances. So this and others, there is what Marcela was mentioning, some of the examples that we have developed to also generate evidence and so on, not only we, but also the others developed by others within the CGIAR and beyond, which will bring together to implement, to contextualize, and to also generate evidence of performance. Then with this contextualization, we have developed a simplified theory of change, which I will present here. So the idea is, through employing the agroecology, nature positive, and generative solutions, following agroecology principles, and supported by inclusive business model and land use planning, and that are contextualized to a specific location and informed by our participatory engagement with the communities in specific spatial scales, mainly on landscape scale, but connecting the plots and beyond, we can create healthy and nutritious food and production and consumption, resilient equitable livelihoods, and biodiversity and ecosystem gains. So these three are the key areas that we want to achieve through implementing. Not only this, but also we can achieve the major CGIAR impact areas, 5 of them. It depends, which one dominantly can contribute to may depend. Also, it also can vary from place to place, but these are the key areas, the 5 areas that we are contributing. And to achieve this, we have organized ourselves in 7 areas of work. So the first one, so they are interconnected, so one is not before or the other, but they are related. But in general, we have a landscape planning and governance one, which helps us to define where we should prioritize our investment. If we have a landscape somewhere or a country, then where do we go within the country? If we are within a landscape, which part of the landscape? Sometimes we may not do everything everywhere, so we have to prioritize. That is where we have the landscape, the sort of landscape planning and governance. And also in the landscape, one important thing is we have different actors and stakeholders. And there is competing land uses, conflicting land uses, and so on. That means there is a need to have a lot of governance, coordination, and collaboration. So this will happen here. Then the next one, another one is solutions and innovations, which is the agroecology principles dominantly that are employed across the landscape, which you can also include other technologies, nature positive conservation and restoration in an integrated manner. And which one will do where depends upon, again, the nature and the context of the area. We have also enablers or cross-cutting ones with market, institutions, and gender. And then once we do those, we have an evidence generation work package. So that is to support us understand what we have done, more or less, if possible, in near real time. For example, we may have an investor who wants to know what is the contribution of the interventions that has taken place over time, so we have to be able to communicate that using remote sensing, citizen science, and other technologies. So we work with the digital transformation team along that. Then we have the global engagement and learning, which Marcela mentioned, a very important conduit to connect us with global, regional, national actors. For example, the United Nations and other partners. So there will be a lot of learning, a lot of exchange from that, and then we bring it into our areas and we share our lessons. It's also part of the knowledge management. With this, I hand over to Jon, who will also give us some examples. Thank you very much from my side.
I don't think I need that. That would be very high. Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon or good evening, good night to those who might join us online. So it's a pleasure to be here and running you through our multifunctional landscape program. So where and how we work. Losegate has very nicely laid out kind of the boundaries in which we operate, the problems, the solutions we are envisaging, but where do we want to do that and how do we want to go about that? So you see here a list of countries that we have selected based on a set of criteria, and for those of, this has an own life, huh? Ah, here we go. No, don't touch it. These are based on a set of criteria, but these are the ones. Okay. quick. It's more exciting than it should have. Are you all awake now? Okay, good. So these are preliminary sites, and they are or countries, and within the countries we have selected sites, and they are based obviously on the work that we have already carrying out, and to understand where we can bring the multifunctional landscape together as a program. That doesn't mean that we are not active in other sites or other countries, but as we know, we need to prioritize to invest our resources most efficiently. So this is a bit of a challenging thing here. Can I just click the computer? No? Oh, okay. Oh, you can do. That's very kind. Can you go back one? Oh, okay. That's challenging. So you have seen this graph with the areas of work, and this is now taking the context from the areas of work to impact, working from a multi-layered land use plan, governance and coordinating mechanisms all our way through the different solutions, and also understanding that the solutions that we're looking for are partly already available, as we have seen in the slides earlier on, and part of them might also come from other programs, and part of them need to be newly developed depending on the needs of the communities we're working with. And bringing that to the market and non-market systems approaches, business models, to understand how we can implement activities and interventions in a way that they're actually sustained beyond the lifetime of our direct interventions. National, subnational policies, the enabling environment, what do we need to change on the ground in terms of regulations, but what do we need to do on a policy level to actually enable those activities, then having multi-scale, fair, gazy, and behavioral change approaches, bringing that then to the level of capacity sharing programs and resources, also engagement, science-based advocacy. But before we do that, we actually test through frameworks, decision support tools, and holistic performance assessment to understand which of those interventions work and which way they work, so that we're able to document those activities, and importantly, are able to then see which of those interventions might work in different contexts and bringing them across countries and across sites. Next slide, please. So we do apply, and we have heard that we are coming from the agroecology initiative, the nature positive, the livestock and climate, but also the biodiversity environment platform, based on the agroecology principles. And we just saw that we might need to work on those and extend those to include more explicitly aquatic food and water. So this is work in progress, but they are the principles on which we need to build the work, so that we are able to be guided as we monitor and evaluate the integrality of our approaches in collaborative research. Next slide, please. So what does a multifunctional landscape mean in reality? And I think this is something where people might think like, well, what is it? What is a landscape to start with, but what is a multifunctional landscape? Well, it depends, and it can be determined by biophysical boundaries, it can be determined by institutional boundaries, it can be determined by the communities we are working with, but most importantly is the fact that we want to work across different scales. So, for example, in this case in Senegal, we have the Fatick, kind of the region in which we want to operate, and we bring that down to the concrete landscape, you see that here, down to the concrete activity on a farm and back. So the idea is that the activities that are operating in the landscape are all interconnected, and that we are more explicitly consider these interconnectivity across these different activities, but we are able to implement very concretely on the ground in a specific situation for a specific intervention that is necessary to feed into the landscape level. Suspension. We have a lot of success to build on. We have seen already a lot of scientific publications, but we have also a lot of success we built on. And one big success is obviously that we have been able to partner within the CG across all the different centers, but also outside the CG on a local level, on a regional, on a local level, on a national level, regional level, and global level. And it would be almost impossible to show all of the partners. So if you're in the room, you know who you are. If you do not have engaged with us and you do want to engage with us, then of course you're more than welcome to do that. But what is really, really important is that the success of this activity, as it is a very complex endeavor, is based on the fact that we need to go through partnerships. And that is also very true in relation to how we implement activities on the ground, working with the communities and the partners on the ground to actually bring that to fruition. Next slide, please. So some successes that we already see in terms of concrete work on the ground. So we have had joint village land use planning and participatory rangeland management in Tanzania, for example. We have bio-inputs from sustainable pest and disease management in Zimbabwe. Next slide, please. We have native tree-based restoration. We just saw the My Farm trees. We have stakeholders of the Kenyan partner organization, Drylands Natural Resource Center, that adopted the agroecological principles and practices so that we bring everything we are doing onto the ground actually into the real world, so to say. Next slide, please. We had strategic business partnerships, the relevance of business models, market systems here in organic olive oil in Tunisia, cacao in Peru, green leafy vegetables and mango in Kenya. And we also have the improved policy that are supporting sustainable agri-food system transformations here, for example, in Kenya, Peru, Laos, and Cambodia. What is really important is that the landscape program obviously works within the portfolio, and we need to identify where are the linkages across all the programs. And as you can imagine, as we have seen before in some of the slides, we have on-farm activities that are relevant for the landscape level impact. They might come through the sustainable farming one. We might work on livestock and aquatic foods that are coming from the respective program. We will need to have a better understanding of how climate is impacting the landscape and the activities within, but we also need to see how our activities might mitigate. So we have the strong cooperation with the climate one that Marcella also mentioned. We need enabling conditions. We need to work with the policy program. We have specific landscapes through the Frontiers program, for example. We have urban and peri-urban, we have fragile areas, we have island food systems. In the end, our aim is, of course, to provide food, nutrition, livelihoods. So we need to work with the Better Diets and Nutrition to understand what is the nutritional opportunities in a particular landscape linked to the production opportunities in a given landscape. Then we need to understand what is needed in terms of maybe providing input in terms of breeding, the relevance of the gene banks, not only in terms of new varieties, but also making available the indigenous species that are becoming more relevant in particular situations, and then the cross-cutting activity through the digital innovation, capacity sharing, gender, and then last but not least, of course, the scaling for impact. How do we bring all of the activities into scale? So I think this is just a very rough example of that. And with that, I end our introductory part. So thank you very much for that. And we have provided that presentation already to some partners that were we're very happy to have them in the room partly and partly online to give us some reactions on the multifunctional landscape. So it's my big pleasure to first invite Vanjira Mathai, and we have a video, I suppose, that we can play as a reaction.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for this opportunity to share some thoughts with you. It's such a pleasure to be with you today, even though I'm joining you by screen, for the launch of the CGIAR Multifunctional Landscape Science Program. I'm speaking to you as the MD for Africa and Global Partnerships, but also as someone who spent years working on restoration, conservation, and development. So I have to say, I am genuinely excited about this new program and the necessary direction CGIAR is taking. For a long time, CGIAR has been known for its incredible work in agricultural research. I was honored to serve on the board, helping to drive the green revolution. And while some centers have focused on agrobiodiversity for years, this new shift feels really significant, moving beyond just agriculture and taking on a bigger picture, landscapes, ecosystems, communities. It's just a powerful, much needed evolution. But the truth is, we can't talk about food security without talking about the health of our landscapes. They go hand in hand, and I want to applaud CGIAR for recognizing that and centering that and taking this next step forward. But let's be real, it's not just a rebrand, it actually comes with real responsibilities, which I know you know. We're living at a time when humanity is pushing past so many planetary boundaries, from the climate crisis to biodiversity loss to widening inequality. And yes, agriculture has played a role, but it is also at the heart of the solutions. By embracing a more systemic, systems approach, holistic approach, CGIAR is saying we are ready to center this as part of the solution and to help steer us back into a healthier, more sustainable balance with our planet. And that's the kind of leadership we need right now. We all know that science that helped increase yields in the past, but today our goals are even bigger, restoring biodiversity, protecting ecosystems, and building real, lasting resilience for the future. So today we celebrate a big moment, the launch of a program that could reshape how we think and manage lands and seascapes. But that's just the beginning. What matters most is what happens next, how we show up and invest and stay committed over time. Because this is deep transformation that doesn't happen overnight. It's not about quick wins or neat outputs. It's about building something lasting that takes patience, trust, and vision. So personally, I find this work deeply inspiring. CGIAR's Multifunctional Landscapes program represents the kind of thinking we need right now. It's bold, it's collaborative, and it's grounded in reality. So it reflects my own beliefs in agriculture and nature that can not only coexist, but they must and always thrive together. That we can feed the world and protect it at the same time. So to everyone who helped shape this awesome program, congratulations. And now comes the exciting part of putting this vision into action. You've got the community of allies around you across the environment and development space, and they're ready to walk this journey with you. So together, let's make this multifunctional landscapes a foundation for sustainable development everywhere, in Africa, in Asia, and all the way into the Americas. Thank you all, and congratulations.
Thank you very much. And now it is my pleasure to invite Guy Font from the Research Innovation European Commission, Senior Policy Officer. Guy, please.
Thank you for this invitation. I'm really happy to see the emergence and launch of this new science program. And for me, I want to mention that we worked hard with other members of the System Council of the CG to push and promote agroecological approaches, nature-based solutions high in the agenda of the CG. And I think at this moment we can see that we succeed to make more visible a lot of research done by a research team in different CG centers. So I'm very happy to see this launch. I want also to see that we really need to have different options to address the current and dramatic challenges we face. And it was one of the main arguments we used. We need to have several options. We just need to propose to the different communities different options to solve the problems. And I think it's a duty of a research center such as CGIAR to propose and to address and to work on different options. The second point I want to make is I really think we need to produce knowledge and methods regarding nature-based solutions, agroecological approaches. The question is not just to solve some problems in some locations, it's to find solutions to be scaled. And what we want to scale, because it's context-specific solutions, are not technologies, are not specific techniques, but it's approaches. How can we scale these agroecological approaches? So I really appreciate the way that this science program will address different levels: farm level, landscape level, policy level, market level. And I think it's quite key to produce knowledge to scale agroecological and nature-based solutions. So I'm really happy to see the different interaction with the different science program. And I think you didn't mention the science program scaling for impact. And it's really a work we have to do, how to scale approaches, not technology, how to scale approaches, because we work on context-specific solutions. And we had some discussion with ISDC, with Holger Meinke, who is here, and to see how we can make better interaction between different science programs, and especially, for example, the sustainable farming program. And I think it's quite key to have this coherence and to avoid to work on silo. And just to finish, maybe it's a dream, but I really want to see some interaction and collaborative work with the breeding science program. Just as an example, just yesterday, I went to the booth of the breeding program where there is a huge database of different CGIAR varieties. And I said, I'm a farmer, I want to look for varieties of maize adapted for mixed cropping, maize plus beans. And there is no entry regarding this point. So we really need to increase, to work with different science programs on agroecological approaches and nature-based solutions. So I really hope we can provide knowledge and methods to address this issue at scale. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Guy, and I fully agree. And my poor attempt to try to show the linkages, I think we can do better than that. But as I said, it's very obvious, that we need to have that linkage, those linkages. Otherwise, we won't be able to really, come to these, joint approaches that you have been mentioning that are important. So thank you very, very much for that. Now I want to invite Sig Snap, who is not only the Director for Sustainable Agri-Food Systems at CIMMYT, but also Interim Director of the Climate Action Programme. Sig, please.
Do that, right? Good morning, everyone. So I was really excited to get this opportunity to comment because, the Green Revolution and conventional science has done a lot, right? We have varieties that now double yields. But as was just said, they don't necessarily are suited for the actual intercrop systems out there. But there's huge interest. I have seen traditional breeders asking me, how would we breed for cropping systems? So now is the moment, right? And multifunctional landscapes is where we can do this work. So I am super excited. Can you give me the slide that I sent? Thanks, that would be great. So what I think right now is that although conventional science, thanks you, that's perfect, has done so much, it hasn't really addressed the wicked problems of the world, right? We still are going outside planetary boundaries. And as CG, we have a really responsibility to provide, as we heard, approaches. We keep hearing at this meeting, and I'm very excited about it, insights for impact. But are we really focused on, we're developing cool things, mother babies, you might know, I've worked on that in the past. It might be living labs. It might be all these positive deviants, all these fantastic things. But let's really together, and I see that there's the start of that, which is fantastic, but I really would say through climate action, climate is what's really focusing my attention. I don't know about you, but it's getting hotter and hotter. And maybe we need to take things like Living Labs Plus, because any of these action learning approaches, and think of them as learning landscapes and multifunctional landscapes. I just really challenge you to work with us on climate and sustainable farming as two particular areas where if we can develop these approaches and develop fair data, this will be more relevant data, right? This will help our partners build the capacity to do the types of research that can address a changing world. People are more food insecure than they were 5 years ago, and this is a really sobering time. But there's hope in that CG is now really looking at how can we learn. We're seeing those living labs, whether it's here in Kenya, in Oaxaca, in Mexico, we have also one that's this Mixteca, mixed land. We have unique infrastructure. If we're not, now is the time to turn that infrastructure into the sort of types of data that then can be used by the communities. We have an obligation to get that data back to communities, right? We have an obligation to share it with the world. So in addition to the gene banks and the improved varieties, I'm just really challenging multifunctional landscapes, because if not you, well, not us, then who, right? We need to come up with some more systematic ways that these approaches can then be supported by our partners taking them on, because it's not for us to do the scaling, it is for our partners. So I think the discoveries, as you've really shown, can go into policy insights, can go into options that can be used by context for performance, right? Participatory action research, it all goes back to that. Options by context equals performance. But how are those options to be generated? How do we make sure that they're relevant to farmers? And then having information hubs, one-stop shops, let's work together on that. There's really a call for that. And then in turn, we can be known. This was the year that we switched from doing really cool stuff all over, and I love working with my scientists and across centers, but now is the time to develop this new infrastructure that will complement conventional science. Get off research stations, get into learning landscapes like I've seen in Hyderabad with ICRSAT. We each have them as centers. Let's pull them together into a new infrastructure. And I think multifunctional landscapes, you're the leaders on this. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Okay, adjusting. Thank you so much, Sig. And I think I fully agree. I mean, we need to do it together, and this is the only way that we can achieve what we want to achieve. So now it is my pleasure to introduce Sarah Scher, who has also sent us a video, and she's founder and board member of Eco-Agriculture Partners Advisor of 1,000 Landscapes for 1 billion people. So who, if not she, can give us very nice feedback on our program. So please play the video.
Hello everyone, I'm delighted to join you, even if it's online, for this important launch of the CGIAR Multifunctional Landscapes, or MFL. My thanks to all the organizers for inviting me. As the founder of Eco-Agriculture Partners and a leader in the 1,000 Landscapes for 1 Billion People initiative, I've seen firsthand what it takes for landscapes to thrive. Today I feel hopeful that this new MFL program can empower our global landscapes movement in very practical ways. I've worked with landscape initiatives across Africa, Latin America, Asia, and North America, and one lesson stands out. Thriving landscapes are built from the ground up. They succeed when local communities, farmers, NGO and indigenous groups, businesses, and researchers, and governments, even if it's online, for this important launch of the CGIAR Multifunctional Landscapes, or MFL. My thanks to all the organizers for inviting me. As the founder of Eco-Agriculture Partners and a leader in the 1,000 Landscapes for 1 Billion People initiative, I've seen firsthand what it takes for landscapes to thrive. Today I feel hopeful that this new MFL program can empower our global landscapes movement in very practical ways. I've worked with landscape initiatives across Africa, Latin America, Asia, and North America, and one lesson stands out. Thriving landscapes are built from the ground up. They succeed when local communities, farmers, NGO and indigenous groups, businesses, and researchers and governments come together as long-term partners to mobilize a regenerative future for their place. No amount of top-down planning can substitute for the creativity and ownership that comes when stakeholders co-create their own solutions. So it's very inspiring that MFL puts co-design and co-implementation with local partners at its core. The living landscapes where you work can become innovation testbeds, ensuring research in practical, demand-driven, and grounded in the wisdom of those managing the land, while supporting them with world-class science. MFL is the new kind of science platform we need to tackle the poly crisis. Its transdisciplinary approach will bring together agroecological, regenerative, nature-positive, and nutrition-sensitive solutions for impacts from farm to entire watersheds. This will be game-changing. We finally have a major coordinated international research effort to harmonize conservation, restoration, and production at the landscape level. I see you generating baskets of solutions for multifunctional landscape management. Not one size fits all, but tailored mixes of practices. MFL can support landscape partners also in adaptive management and decision-making through integrated data systems, performance assessments, AI, and digital solutions. But landscape regeneration also requires supportive policies and markets that reward sustainability. So it's exciting for me as a policy economist that MFL will also be engaging with policymakers to test governance models and with financiers to develop innovative mechanisms like payments for ecosystem services and biodiversity-friendly value chains. CGIAR's MFL will succeed by aligning the platform explicitly with the global landscape movement and with vibrant communities of practice like 1,000 Landscapes for 1 billion people, the Global Landscapes Forum, AFR 100, and others. MFL offers a powerful science and innovation engine to turbocharge the movement. I'm enthusiastic to work with you, learn with you, and see the thriving landscapes we will nurture together. Thank you so much, and much good luck.
Thank you very much. And with that, I think I give back to Gina. Thank you. Do you need the...
Thank you so much, Jon, and a heartfelt thank you to all our speakers, Wanjira, Guy, Sage, and Sarah. And at this point, I would like to introduce Christine Davies, who will explain how we'll be capturing our feedback and questions using Mentimeter.
Slido, thanks. Thanks, Gina. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this session. We have a lot of partners and speakers here, and unfortunately, we won't be able to have a big Q&A session, but you're very welcome to join us at 10:30 in CR9, where we're going to go into much more depth and have an interactive session. We also have an opportunity now for a couple of minutes to go onto the Slido. You can scan it with your phone or go onto slido.com and put this number in, #1966544, and give us your comments, your questions, your feedback, your email, whatever you would like to give us some feedback on the session. And again, we'll be going into a deeper dive at 10:30 upstairs in CR9. Shall we give everyone a few minutes? Following that, if you're able to multitask, we'll be going into a panel for our different areas of work. Thank you. Change the world. Awesome. Are you going to change the world? We're going to do it together, right? Collaborate. Enable sustainable livelihoods. Thank you very much for your feedback. Keep it coming. Has everyone had a chance to scan? Okay, another minute. Eat well. Redesign the food baskets, integrate production systems, okay? Really co-create. All right. Thank you so much for your feedback. Keep it coming as we move into the next session. So Multifunctional Landscapes has 7 areas of work that we'll be explaining very briefly. I have a panel of leads and co-leads from the areas of work who will, in 3 minutes or less, be telling us about the exciting approaches for science to lead to impact in their areas of work. Can we change, to the next slide? I'll just give you an overview here of the areas of work. We're just swapping between slides. Thanks. You can go to the next slide, which gives an overview. You have seen this slide before, but we've just put some faces and names to the people working in the different areas of work. I'm not sure why the trajectory isn't showing, but you can, okay, here it comes. And we'll be sharing these slides with all of you. Okay, let's move on to the first area, and I'll invite Carlo Fada to talk about exciting approaches to solutions in multifunctional landscapes.
Thank you so much, and it's really a great pleasure and honor to be able to participate to this very important event for launching the Multifunctional Landscape Science Program. Indeed, area of work one, it's really about the innovation, the solutions, the options that are available for working at different scales within landscape, from the farms to the broader landscape, from protected areas to watersheds, etc. So obviously the options and the solutions need to be very much diverse. And they are collectively developed together with the partners, with the farmers on the ground, with landscape stakeholders. And we have a lot of experience coming from the different initiatives and platforms, as it was mentioned earlier by Lulseged and Marcela. The solutions focus a lot, have a strong focus, and then as Marcela was saying, agroecology was people-centered, nature positive was nature-centered. So a lot of, and very strong focus on biodiversity. Biodiversity of crops, traditional crops, opportunity crops, how we can valorize those crops and how we can make those seeds available to farmers in a participatory way. That's one component of the biodiversity. The tree diversity, we've seen the picture of on the My Farm tree, how we can identify suitable species for not only restoring and increasing the number of trees, but also to benefit the communities by a very smart and wise selection of the species that we need to plant, and then through the My Farm tree, how we can make them available to farmers. We have the forages, so important for the animals. We have the animal diversity, the fish, the livestock, the chicken, etc., that are also important component of those production systems. So this is more for the farm dimension, and then of course the soil management and the water management, without which this diversity cannot thrive. We need to tailor the diversity to the soil condition, and we need to make sure that soil health is improved. So a suite of options which are different by different locations and countries are available in this context. And of course, when it comes to the selection of the diversity, that's also important for the healthy diets and our food. So we need to take into account the multiplicity of goals that biodiversity can play. And all of this needs to be linked to market, which is more the domain of area of work 3, because it's very much, we need to make sure that people can benefit from the diversity. And we need to make sure that this diversity is developed, is used and promoted with actor-centered together with the communities. And then we have the broader landscape dimension. In the landscape, you have areas that are degraded. You may have natural forests, you may have protected water bodies, and you may have peatlands, you may have rangelands. So apart from this more specific use, we need to have a very strong mechanism through which we can actually ensure that we have solutions to better manage those broader areas. And I think what is really important to understand is that the way we manage these other areas needs also to be important for the livelihood of the people, because the population is growing and these areas will be under increased pressure to be converted into, again, unsustainable practices. So unless we manage those areas in ways that benefit the people, they're soon gonna be lost. And that's why it's so important, the participation and the partnership with all the landscape stakeholders that is so crucial in this area. And then obviously, and that will be the domain of area of work 2 that Fiona will talk to immediately after, those solutions needs to be part of the negotiation, the governance, the bundling of the solutions. So how do we bring those water, soil, biodiversity management, forest management together in the living labs which needs to be jointly done together with the area of work too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Carlo. I'd like to now invite Fiona Flinton to talk about exciting approaches, science for impact within multifunctional landscape planning and governance.
Thanks. Yes, so area 2 is really where we bundle these solutions that Carlo has talked about and others to better respond to the challenges being faced in these different landscapes where we're currently working and or will work. A key hypothesis across all of this is that by supporting these landscapes to become more multifunctional, there will be bigger gains in terms of food security, poverty reduction, boosting livelihoods, health well-being, climate resilience building, environmental gains and other, as we've heard. So this will be achieved through better understanding the challenges being faced in each context, in each landscape where we aim to work and support or are working already and building on that. And then co-establishing with the stakeholders in those landscapes bundles of solutions most appropriate to that context. And this will be done through a process of visioning, through planning, to optimize the multifunctionality, restoring the land where needed and appropriate, and maximizing, trying to maximize those social, economic, and environmental benefits. As we've heard, the governance of those multifunctional landscapes is also very important. So this is a core component of this area of work. And this can be through establishing and supporting the establishment of multi-stakeholder platforms or similar. This area of work, because it's kind of almost like the backbone of the science program, holding together, bringing in the solutions, working with the markets, working with policies, ensuring that these processes are equitable and influencing, feeding out, influencing policies and global engagement. We really need to work closely. This area of work needs to work very closely with the other areas of work, and particularly with the area of work 6, which you'll hear about in a little bit, on the performance and evidence generation, so that we're well prepared to be able to show that this investment does produce that impact, does produce those gains that we're aiming for. So that's all from me, from area of work 2.
Great, thank you, Fiona. Salome Gebre-Xabier, we turn next to you to talk about exciting approaches in markets and business models. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Christine. So area of work 3 is on markets and business models. So directly linking to area of work 1 will be developing or co-designing innovative market mechanisms and also sustainable and bankable business models, as well as financing schemes for the bundles of solutions which are co-designed or developed under area of work 1. So to achieve this, it's important to understand the markets and consumer behaviors. In the previous work that we have done under the initiatives, the consumer aspect of it was not very well captured. So under multifunctional landscape program, we'll be looking at assessing the consumer behaviors, assessing consumer preference for biodiversity-based products and goods and products. And a key aspect of that is also assessing and capturing the economic value of ecosystem services. This will also enable us to come out with innovative financing mechanisms, such as blended financing mechanisms, payment for ecosystem services, and also looking at or exploring carbon credits. We have a number of or bundles of solutions where we'll be able to sequester carbons. So can we explore financing mechanisms where we look at carbon credits as key aspects of those solutions? In addition to that, we will also build capacities of producer organizations, farmer-based organizations, fishers or herders, and also bio-input producers. This is important, especially when we are co-designing business models for scaling. And in this regard, it's important also to link with area of work 4, where we will be looking at the enabling environment. What is the financial ecosystem in those landscapes or countries actually that we are operating? So it's important to link with area of work 4 and also 5 in co-designing inclusive business models. On the scaling, I think it's also critical for us to collaborate with the Scaling for Impact science program, where we will look at different approaches for scaling these bundles of solutions. And lastly, it's also important to understand the economic, social, and environmental sustainability of those bundles of solutions that we are proposing. So we'll look at different approaches, but we'll be linking with Area 4.6 to generate evidence and also performance of those different bundles of solutions. I think that's, we can stop here, but we do have different approaches on market-based and non-market-based valuation methods, which are also important here. Thank you.
Thank you, Salome. Next up, we have Wei Zhang to talk about institutions and policies area of work. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Hi, everyone. So we are employing transdisciplinary research to support large-scale adoption of agroecology, nature-positive, regenerative, restorative practices at landscape scale. This really requires coherent and consistent coordinated institutions and policies that realign the incentives to what matters, which is better livelihoods, better, more nutritious food for everyone, economic opportunities, social equity, inclusion, and environmental sustainability. We need these institutions and policies to be able to break sectoral silos and support business models, draw investment, and enable transformative change to behavior, to governance, policy processes, and economic decision-making. To match this ambition, we need 3 pillars of work. They are mutually supportive, rigorous institutions and policies analysis, and active policy engagement and science policy dialogues, and demand-driven capacity strengthening. We've planned a range of activities this year, but let me just maybe highlight a few. First, we plan to continue carrying out the governance and political economy research to understand the policy processes and enabling organization structures and institutions for the transition. Second, we plan to conduct diagnosis and recommendations analysis in terms of the role of NARS in this transition to address one of the blind spots of research. Third, we plan to carry out dialogues with national and subnational policy actors and other stakeholders to look at the utility of tools such as true cost accounting to review, illuminate, and measure trade-offs and opportunities in agroecology and multifunctional landscape transition versus business as usual. And fourth, we also plan to develop tools to track the integration of agroecology and integrated landscape approaches in relevant national sectoral regulations, laws, policies, and strategies. And we've been having discussions with other science programs and accelerators, such as policy innovations, sustainable farming, to explore synergies in this area of work. Thank you.
Thank you, Wei. I'd like to ask Sarah Freed now to please tell us a little bit about the gender equality, social inclusion, and fairness area of work.
Thank you, Kristen. So you've already heard a bit about the foundations of the multifunctional landscape approach, which include co-creation, transdisciplinarity, and multi-stakeholder action. And if we're serious about this, then we have to also be serious about gender equality, social inclusion, and fairness. And so the way we go about this, in this area of work, we have organized our approaches to serve 3 core functions. The first one is that we will be working with the other areas of work, and this will be to facilitate gender responsiveness and social inclusion in all of the approaches throughout this program. A few examples of what we would use would be the gender up approach to scaling, also the research approaches to understand and address gender norms. Our second function is about adapting gender equality and social inclusion approaches that are existing to this landscape approach that we are now taking in this science program. And one example of this is using gender transformative approaches at an organizational level. The third function is to develop and conduct research on emerging topics. This is across a variety of areas in social science and also relevant for inclusion, fairness, and gender equality. We've identified areas we want to focus on, such as resilience, quality of life, looking at bringing what is rooted in agroecology and some of the work we've done in the agroecology initiative. We will be focusing on social movements and how those also play a role. So these are some of the examples of approaches we'll be using, and we look forward to working further together. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Matthias Geck, what can you tell us about exciting approaches to evidence generation and performance assessment?
We'll find out. Thanks, Kristen. Well, what inspirational remarks we've heard from Wanjira, from Sarah, from Sig, from Guy. It seems encouraging that we're on the right track with this multifunctional landscape science program. But how do we find out, together with our partners, which interventions to prioritize and whether or not we're really on track with our interventions to achieve the landscape transformation, leading to better performance of the landscape across multifunctional diverse functionalities. This is where area of work 6 comes in, which is all about evidence and assessments on landscape performance across multiple functionalities to enable more evidence-based landscape planning and management through more effective decision-making. So 3 main points that for me stick out. First, let's not reinvent the wheel. Second, let's engage and really measure what matters. And finally, let's aim at enabling evidence-based decision-making and not just providing data. So regarding the first, don't reinvent the wheel, we've heard it from Lulsegat, from Jörn, from Marcella. We're not new to these landscapes. We've been working there before. We've collected a lot of data. So we don't want to come in and just start afresh, develop a new assessment tool and run it through, but rather start with synthesizing and really in a stakeholder-centered manner packaging the existing information, and then working with Fiona and team from Area of Work 2 to see what is the vision of the landscape actors, what is it that they want to achieve, and then based on this, develop a landscape-specific assessment framework, carry it out together with them, and all of this coupled with what Sig nicely mentioned, creating information hubs, creating that one-stop go-to place for everyone interested in metrics, in people using metrics, in data, and in that information. So really binding it all rather than developing new tools. Then regarding the second, engaging and measuring what matters. We're coming from agroecology. Agroecology plays an important role in this science program, and agroecology is all about co-creation and sharing of knowledge through transdisciplinary approaches. So obviously we also want to apply that in Area of Work 6 on that sometimes rather dry matter of metrics and evidence. So once again, we do not want to just decide from the CGIAR, this should be measured, this is what we're doing, but we really want to engage with the landscape actors, find out what data gaps and information needs do people have, to find out where should they prioritize, what are the challenges they face in the landscape, what are the major opportunities, and how can we know whether or not we're achieving this vision. So we're rather creating landscape-specific assessment frameworks, but at the same time, we want to work closely with Area of Work 7, of which we'll hear soon from Kageli, on global engagement and learning. So it is important that we're having some sense of coherence across these context-specific assessments per landscape. So there will be global KPIs, even though a narrow set, that really allow us to contribute to the growing evidence based on the performance of agroecology, nature-positive solutions, and regenerative agriculture, on how it's living up to the global challenges, particularly the three main impact areas that Jörn and Lulse pointed out in the beginning. And finally, we want to create impact. It's not just about the research. So we need to find out what is the best way to enabling decision making. Once again, transdisciplinarity comes in. Engaging with decision makers across all steps is really important. However, just data is usually not enough. So we want to employ innovative data science and ex post as well as foresight modeling with the vision to eventually create digital twins of the landscapes we're engaging in that really allow for decision makers to play through different scenarios, different implications of their decisions to find out how interventions, priorities on forestry, on agroecology, on regenerative agriculture, on fisheries would impact the different functionalities that their landscapes fulfill, and thereby really contribute to better decision making also in area of work 4 on policy and governance, in area of work 1 on what should be the innovations that we need to be creating. I hope I didn't talk way too long, so please.
Thanks, Matthias. Finally, the last speaker, Kajele Maso, will talk about global engagement and learning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'm coming at the right time because this area of work is really bringing things together. So we will have 3 pillars for this one. The most critical one, the first, is the need-based capacity sharing, and that will be through assessing the capacity sharing mechanism to facilitate cross-regional learning, national learning, and also at sub-national level learning through communities of practices to improve the multifunctionality of landscapes. How this will be done, it will be really through convening or contributing to existing communities of practices on multifunctional landscapes in terms of science, practices, and also policies. And what do we mean by the community of practice? That is really the most important part. We start with the different areas of work or the multifunctional landscape science program. We move to all the CGIAR centers. We move to all the science programs and also accelerators. And on top of that, we bring in all the critical stakeholders and more importantly, the actors who are influencing the decision-making processes at the landscape level. I can say that everyone who is in this room is part of this community of practice. Then we will co-develop together, co-identify the priority capacity sharing needs in terms of the needs and the offer and to facilitate the sharing. And more importantly, co-develop the learning agenda and as well as the capacity sharing mechanism for both degree and non-degree trainings. The second pillar is about integrated knowledge management and toolkits to facilitate multifunctional landscape innovation scaling, but also research prioritization. And this will be done mainly through systematic literature reviews, including modern tools like artificial intelligence, but also digging into traditional knowledge. And the second thing will be mainly really using feedback loops, information sharing, and feedback from the different actors and stakeholders to be able to inform how do we package most of that information. In the first pillar, in terms of a capacity needs, we will work more closely with really the capacity sharing initiative. In this one about integrated knowledge, we will work a lot closely with the Scaling for Impact initiative. And as Matthias was referring to the global engagement and cross-regional learning, there will be really critical focus on assessing engagement mechanism that allows us to accelerate the inclusion of multifunctionality of landscape into the global policy processes, but also try to make sure that we accelerate the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals the national biodiversity strategies and action plans, the national action plans with respect to climate, but also the land degradation neutrality targets with respect to the UNCCD. This will be done through really an engagement framework that will be developed by the community of practice, and also through organizing or participating in the global policy agenda that could be at the national level, global level, and regional level, focusing on science and practices and policy. And with this, I can hand over to the moderator.
Thank you so much, Karjele. Thank you to all of our panelists for your input. Just before I hand back to Gina, just to mention, thank you so much for the questions online. We'll be attempting to answer them either on Zoom or in the next session at 10:30 in CR9. So please continue to put questions into the Slido or into the Zoom chat, or come and ask us too. Back to you, Gina.
Thank you so much, Christine, and a big thank you to all the area of work leads and speakers for sharing the truly innovative strategies that shapes our work in multifunctional landscapes. Now we are shifting gears to hear from our valued partners who are integral to the work we do. And without naming them individually just yet, I would like to invite Lisa Fuchs, who is a senior scientist at the Alliance of Biodiversity and CGIAR and country coordinator for multifunctional landscapes in Kenya, to moderate the panel.
Thank you, Gina. Can you hear me? Okay. Good morning. So, Jörn introduced the importance of partners throughout our initiatives. And yes, we are very pleased to have 4 of our partners in the room today. I would like to briefly introduce them. We have Rosina Mbenya, who is the country coordinator for Kenya of PELAM, Participatory Ecological Land Use Management Association. Thank you. Second, we have Prof. Dao Te An, Vietnam Academy of Science Vice President. Third, we have Selim Louafi, Deputy Director General for Research and Strategy for CIRAD. And fourth, we have Natalia Alexeva, Coordinator of the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration for UNEP. Thank you very much. I would like to dig in immediately with the first question to Rosina. So Rosina has been a partner, PELAM has been a partner in the agroecology initiative in Kenya specifically. And PELAM basically had 3 main roles. PELAM helped to identify and mobilize members on the ground that helped us with the implementation on the ground and gave us entry points for collaboration. That was number 1. Number 2, through their national network, they helped in integration vertically and horizontally of activities through their various members. And number 3, PELAM plays a very important role at national and subnational level in policy dialogues and supported our engagement at that level. So I would like to ask you, Rosina, what you have enjoyed about the collaboration with us, what do you think we can continue, and where you think we can make additions? Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa, and good morning, everyone. Yes, as PELAM Kenya, we are a network of 63 member organizations spread out in the whole of the country, and we are indeed reaching all the 47 counties of Kenya. And allow me to first appreciate the CGI for the great work that they are doing in ensuring that smallholder farmers and pastoral communities in Kenya are put at the center of the work that you are doing. We have been delighted to have partnered with the Alliance Biodiversity through the agroecology living labs, and this has created a process whereby the farmers are now closer to the researchers, and the research is also being done in a way that it is problem-oriented or also able to solve solutions that farmers are facing and in a context-specific manner, specifically in Makueni and Kiambu, actually parts of Kiambu which are very dry. And I'm excited because this initiative went to parts of the ASALs, that is the arid and semi-arid lands of Kenya, which form about 80% of the country, and there we have been trying to look at what solutions, what treatments can we work with farmers to ensure that agroecology is working. And we are very happy that when I see the farmers smiling, when I see the farmers really understanding the research that is taking place and also scaling up some of these interventions. Secondly, we have also been part of the circular economy work that has been done through the HIMI, And particularly, it's very interesting because it's a time of food loss and waste. And also at the same time, we are asking ourselves, how do we scale up bio-inputs? And in Western Kenya, we have been able to do that work, and specifically even reaching to women who are very at the center of the food that we eat, and also who are doing a lot of work in terms of agriculture. And thirdly, we have also worked with the Nature Positive, particularly in Vihiga County, and I'm excited that Vihiga is launching the agroecology policy on the 25th of April, and we have collaborated with the Alliance on that work. At national level, also we have been part of the process that has ensured that the National Agroecology Strategy has been launched in the country, and we are not stopping there. We are also working closely with CFOICRAF to work on measurements of and also tracking of this National Agroecology Strategy, and also importantly to ensure that it is being implemented. And what do I see? I see the future being more and more interventions that are reaching to the smallholder farmers, and so more so longer time, because for instance, the participatory action work that we are doing with the Alliance, it needs more time, and it also needs to be scaled up. So we need even more time on that, and also deepening of the areas that we are doing. And in terms of policy, many counties in Kenya can learn from Vihiga, and there is much more that needs to happen in those spaces. The national strategy should also not end there, but also should be supported in terms of measuring where we are and how the policies can be implemented in the country. So we hope that with this multifunctional landscape, the work can continue so that the smallholder farmers and the pastoral communities that are putting the food on the table are able to get closer to the researchers and be able to provide the answer that can agroecology feed the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosina. With that, I would like to move on to Prof. So you headed the steering committee of Nature Positive in Vietnam. And in view of your experience with Nature Positive and your contributions to other research networks in Vietnam, but also internationally, what can you tell us about the specific research and development priorities that you see emerge, especially for Vietnam, but also for Southeast Asia more broadly, or even globally? And how do you think we can address them through the Multifunctional Landscape Science Program? Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for inviting me to this very important event. So I'm in Vietnam. I also working as a national food system convener in Vietnam, and also the president of Vietnam is part of the alliance, the regional alliance of learning for agroecology. So creating by CGIAR and GRET is a French NGO. So this means in the last several years we are partner of nature-based solution from the alliance and SIP, etc. So we have some. I highly appreciate the result, even still at a small scale on the community conservation, biodiversity, and try to connect with local consumption in order to and school meal in order to improve the local nutrition qualities. Because you know that in mountainous area in Vietnam, farmers go very fast to market, so become maybe crop monoculture. And the loss of biodiversity and loss of the local production system is have negative impact on the nutrition. Farmer richer, but access to lower food quality. And I think this is the question we explain, that why Vietnam export a lot of agricultural product, but malnutrition is still high. So I think that here we are very happy to hear different group under the multifunctionality landscape. Is I think that is a really I believe that can test and experiment in Vietnam. Maybe I'd like to introduce you to some enabling policy and environmental for agroecology, nature-based solution, or regenerative agriculture. We already integrate agroecology as the main component of the National Action Plan for Food System up to 2030. That means this is a task adopted by government. This is by Prime Minister. That means different minister, agriculture, health, and trade have to realize this at large scale. So just we need evidence and capacity building a lot, and we are waiting contribution from different research universities, so including CGIAR organization to working with us on the co-creation approach. That we are very happy that last week we just received agroecology TPP in Vietnam. It's the first time agroecological TPP come to Asia, and I think that's creating very good policy framework to this. And also we work also at the national, at the regional level, ASEAN. So just last week we announced the issuing of agroecological policy guideline for 11 countries in the ASEAN. So this is a very positive concept. And now we think that we can continue to produce evidence from innovation. But I think that in Vietnam we work also with CIRAD, with different other international organizations, not only CGIAR. So we would like to propose that maybe multifunctionality landscape can also cooperate with CIRAD to work with us on the creating with your living lab approach to work on the really testing different innovation in some territory. With the CIRAD, we just start the territorial branding approach, try to coordinate different innovation on agroecology, nature-based solution, and connecting them with market. So with market here, we think about three types of market and consumer. Firstly, the local farmers. They have to improve their quality of diet. Also combining with the local tourists in order to attract, we have agroecological landscape, region, etc. Very attractive for tourists, not only Vietnamese, but also Western tourists, and connecting with the high-end market. So I think that we can test a different type of market, and the evidence on the approach that we already talking with the TPP, that we need the methodology to impact assessment, etc. And this is very important. So we hope that in the new year we can cooperate with multifunctionality and testing, become a flagship, and using this to upscan by the communication strategy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And beautiful transition as well to our next partner, Selim from CIRAD. So there is a long-standing relationship between CIRAD and the CGIAR. CIRAD also played an important role in the agroecology initiative, also has played a fundamental role in establishing and facilitating the agroecology TPP. So very important partner. Also recently there have been more collaboration priority discussions with some of the other teams, including the Resilient Agri-Food Systems Group. And you personally also have been spearheading research on the science policy interface, specifically looking at the governance of genetic resources, specifically looking at matters of access and benefit sharing. So from your unique vantage point, where do you see some of the research priorities and also opportunities for collaboration with CIRAD, between CIRAD and the Multifunctional Landscape Science Program going forward?
Thank you very much, Lisa, and thank you for offering the opportunity to be part of this panel for this launch of the MFL. And actually, the focus of MFL on integrated solution that balance environmental sustainability with human development goals perfectly aligns with CIRAD's priority, and we are actually very happy with the way our collaboration is rolling out with the CGIAR on this MFL science program, and we have been even included in the as part of the writing team. So that's really working very well. So as you know, and as also Professor Dautean recalls, CIRAD has been involved in supporting agroecological transition for many years in different countries, and we have also staff position in our national partners organization, also in the CG centers in many of the countries that are included in the MFL, in Kenya, in Zimbabwe, in Laos. And we have also long-standing partnerships in many of these countries through partnership platforms, specific tools that CIRAD has developed that is dedicated to specific development challenge via research, innovation, and training, and by pooling resources with various partners over an extended period beyond individual projects. And through these platforms, there is a potential, we think, to extend the partnership to academic and non-academic actors in some region and embark even more organizations to join the multifunctional landscape initiative. And I would add that CIRAD has also been investing for a long time in interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary approaches and has also a lot to offer to the multifunctional landscape program initiative. And on this approach, so we have also dedicated expertise on the development and tools of approach and application of participatory and transdisciplinary approach, including in context actually of strong technology-centered projects. So we have dedicated experts in social science that conduct research and produce knowledge on this approach of participatory science, territorial and multi-scale approaches, planning and collaborative governance, impact pathway, collective intelligence, foresight, and science policy interface. So we've heard how useful this expertise is when we are dealing with a wicked problem that requires integrated approach across scales, sectors, disciplines, and actors with various social values. So to conclude, given the alignment in objectives, there are several opportunities to further even more the collaboration between the MFL and CIRAD and create more synergies and convergence across our organization and with our partners, leveraging also on the TPP, the Transformative Partnership Platform, to expand our community of practice. And this can be done through joint research initiatives that leverage CIRAD expertise in agroecology and on transdisciplinary methodological approach, and the CG work and strong expertise on sustainable food system. Second, on shared platform, utilizing CIRAD's partnership platform and the TPP also to expand the partners and facilitating knowledge exchange and co-development of innovation in real-world settings. And third, I would say the policy engagement by combining efforts to provide evidence-based recommendations to policymakers, drawing from both organizations' research to influence policies that support this multifunctional landscapes. On this topic, we are very happy to partner already with the CGIAR on the Montpellier process that offers a platform to reflect on the role of science in decision-making and aims at proposing new models of SPI. I can also mention the work that is being conducted with the FAO Chief Scientist Office on developing a guidance document on strengthening science policy interface at the national level for food system transformation. And I will mention also, Professor Dautean has already mentioned it, but the agroecology guidelines that has been developed in the context of the ASEAN organization as part of the DESIRA project asset that was funded by the EU. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for these insights. So Natalia, so the CG has been collaborating with the UN Decade of Ecosystem Restoration through you. You have been a partner for a long time. Under the MFL program, we will continue with perspectives that really emphasize holistic food system approaches and seeking nature-positive solutions through context-specific application of the 13 agroecological principles. We have heard severally as well that we are really explicit and deliberate about wanting to combine this triple focus on sustainable production, on restoration, and on conservation as well. So I was interested in understanding a little bit what you see as main frontiers in terms of both research and practice that have emerged over the last few years and that you can propose and that you can give us on our way as we move ahead with the implementation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and my pleasure being here and speaking. And indeed, the UN decade is running already for quite some time, and we're almost in the mid of the decade. And also happy to hear how you're moving. Okay, yeah. Maybe it was a bit too far, thanks. So yeah, we're really moving with trying to synergize and really build in terms of the partnerships, because as you indicate, it's co-led by UNEP and FAO, but now we have more than 300 partners behind us. And within these turbulent times, the synergies, I think, are really important, where we're building on each other's strengths and kind of ideas. And in terms of linking with science, I'm happy to confirm that we have actually a science task force within the UN decade, which is led by IUCN. And this task force was undergoing a bit of refurbishment and a bit of refreshment with new people coming on board. And then they're really excited how to move on with, let's say, linking science to the practical implementation, because with the UN decade, we're really scaling up ecosystem restoration, and we're I was happy to hear the estimate about 2 billion hectares of land which may be restored. Yeah, we're going also beyond the land restoration, because we're looking also at the aquatic ecosystems and oceans restoration, so I'm sure we can do even more. So within this very positive start, I would probably go to the question, because we had actually a very good report which was looking at science-based ecosystem restoration at the beginning of the UN decade. And then we got a couple of messages which I think are very much actually interlinked with your thematic areas which were presented. And I'm so happy that we've been aligned even away before coming to this conference. But probably I will just pick up on a couple of things which would be something for us to consider for the future, right? Because that's the idea, to see how we're moving on. One of the messages was really looking at the multiple benefits which ecosystem restoration is offering. And also I've been speaking earlier this week in the session looking at linking with Rio conventions. And I think it's really important really to come with this positive restoration angle, saying that exactly we're offering different benefits, and these benefits are something which is let's say cross-cutting. So yes, of course, maybe from your point of view, you're looking more on the food security, on the agricultural production, but it's also benefit for the environment, right? And these are also social benefits for livelihoods and for people being in, right? That's something which is really crucial, and maybe the role of science, and something where we have to deep in even more, it's this clear distribution of these benefits and costs associated with restoration, right? This cost-benefit analysis, been very clear on the numbers, been very clear on how we measure and how exactly then we distribute or share these benefits. That's something which is very important from my point of view. Then, of course, it was a lot of discussions, and some of the messages are looking actually at the governance and the balance towards restoration. Because, again, once we're restoring, it's a lot of negotiations. And, for example, we've heard even from some other frameworks that indigenous people were concerned that because of large-scale restoration, their lands would be converted to something else, which they would not be able to use and be the part of this ecosystem, right? So again, looking from more like science point of view, but linking, of course, to policies and governance, it's all these land tenure rights, property rights, whatever, governance, etc. How do we really ensure that our landscapes where we do the restoration are really accommodating different interests and, of course, people in, right? But also going beyond of this. Another message, which I think also very important, is we have to have also equity once we're managing the trade-offs, but also the benefits, right? It's something like we're always saying that restoration is a long-term process, you have to invest, but then you would have the benefits, you would have something coming out. And then the question, of course, yes, once it's been coming out, how exactly we all benefit and how we can also do it in the most transparent and open way. And this example from Kenya, for example, I really love, because that's something which you are really opening up in terms of possibilities and sharing. Another thing which has always been asked, and we have also finance task force, and this particular message was coming more from science angle, but we're always discussing finance and market instruments, and this was also coming from one of the action areas. And these are really crucial for scaling up restoration. And in this case, of course, the kind of research area, but also something where we have to work together. It's really trying to see how we connect these different types of blended financing with supply capital, mitigating the risks, bringing really different partners in a way of kind of connecting these different financial instruments, like matchmaking them, then the kind of really trying to, let's say, bring more of the private sector interest, for example, in, and it's something which we have to be looking more and more, because also the state financing and donor funding is actually been reduced. Unfortunately, we see all of these processes around in different agencies, including also in the UN. So that's why I think that's something even more important now in the current condition. And the last message is something what we have to look at the adaptive management and monitoring, because yes, we have the targets, and I've been actually asked to look also a bit of GBF, so I would still spend a minute at the end of this, because GBF, which is Global Biodiversity Framework, was bringing a target 2 on restoration. And we've been extremely happy that now we have also one more target, which is really specifically looking in. But then the question is coming like, then how would you measure and how you would prove that you're reaching up your targets? And for example, since we have also within the UN decade so-called FIRM, which is Framework for Ecosystem Restoration, we were really looking at how to connect to this target 2 and how to help also to the partners and governments to count and to prove that they're reaching these targets. And for example, if you look at the target itself, it's ensuring that at least 30% of areas of degraded terrestrial inland water and coastal and marine ecosystems are under effective restoration. And then we immediately bump into the issues. What is effective restoration? How would you really count the degraded areas? What is degraded area for marine ecosystems, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a lot of science and a lot of opportunities really also to work in terms of being very clear how would you measure this restoration, how you would connect to maybe some other frameworks like BBNG, whatever, in terms of marine and coastal issues, etc. And also maybe just to conclude that it's a lot of, again, coming back to synergies, because even this target 2, once you look, it's cross-cutting and linked with other targets like 3, 8, 11, whatever. I would not go too much in the details. But then again, coming back to this positive notion of restoration, we've been always confronted a bit with degradation, right? We're always opening the door with degradation, and then it's UNCCD, it's another convention. And that's why we see a lot of interest really of measuring, counting, being very clear in terms of scientific background, how to, and then of course cross-cutting through these different Rio conventions. And I'm happy to work more with all the partners around, and I'm sure we can do much more and we will be successful. Thank you.
Thank you so much to all of our partners for sharing your experience, your thoughts, your insights. Very interesting. I wanted to give a brief summary, but I think I'll just point out 3 main points that are jumping out at me. Number 1, continuous and long-term engagement on the ground beyond projects. Continue with this integration of the long-term partnerships that we have been building across different programs, projects, and other collaborations. To really look for different solutions, community-driven solutions, local solutions that are very strongly linked with science. That's the first point I found. Second point, I think I see that many of you express is really this importance of the transdisciplinary networks, that we connect the different networks that we have, the different communities of practice, the different networks of partners already, to really leverage on the co-development of options, and also the co-development of assessment frameworks to really monitor progress, also in connection with this question of finance and market instruments to ensure that we have continuous financing. And then the third point I think that I heard across most of the presentations was this importance of evidence and co-creation of evidence for policy making and policy impact as area of collaboration. Thank you very much. With that, I would like to hand it back to Luciget.
Okay, thank you so much for all of you here, the partners who spoke online and here. We have discussed a lot on the stake at hand, that we have a complex problem that we have to address, and we have mentioned the key solutions and the partnerships. So we are there to handle, to solve, because there is no shortcuts, there is no way out. So now we have already more or less launched the program, so I'll invite Sandra Milach, the CGIAR CEO, chief scientist, sorry, chief scientist for the CGIAR portfolio, so to make concluding remarks. Thank you.
I've been promoted, I didn't know. Well, thank you so much for coming today. Really appreciate your engagement, your interest in this program, very important program for us. And I'm a person of simple thought and, and simple message, so I'm going to try to simplify this message the way I see it. And how this connects in the portfolio. As you know, portfolio for us, we're driving prioritization based on impact. We're really trying to put the problem we're trying to solve in front of us before we do it. That's the portfolio. Some of these problems, the way we solve, we need to zoom in before we can zoom out. I'll give you an example. And zoom in, what do I mean by that? Is really look at the farm, look at the community. That's what I mean by zooming in. Understanding the problems that the farmers have so that we bring solutions. Examples, sustainable farming will bring that. Breeding for tomorrow, animal aquatic foods. We're zooming in to understand first the problems the farmers have, to be able then to zoom out, if you will, to start looking this. Now, multi-functional landscape, you need to zoom out before you zoom in. And why? I think you need to look at the big picture before you can say, how am I going to go about interventions? And of course, once the information, the evidence that the multi-functional landscapes are going to be, will be fed into the solutions we're going to try to do in other programs. Absolutely will. I'll give one example. I'm going to draw this from my experience from Brazil. I worked 20 years in Brazil, half in public, half in private sector in Brazil. And I really engaged with Embrapa. I was employee of Embrapa and then was strategic advisor for Embrapa for 4 years. And in the early 90s, Brazil really defined the biomes. There are 6 biomes you can look at. And in the biomes, I'll give you 2 examples of very extreme biomes in Brazil. One is the Amazon biome, the other one is the Pampas biome. And they are very different in many angles. So I think some fundamental questions that I think this program will have to look at is like, in the case of the Amazon, what is the food basket should look like? How do we design it so that we take in consideration the biodiversity of that biome, the communities, the type of foods they eat, and the indigenous communities, they have done this for so many years. You go to the Amazon, there are so many different fruits and trees. First time I went to the northern part of Brazil, because I'm a Pampa person. I live in very close to Uruguay, so I'm exactly opposite in the other, side of the country. First time I went, I was like shocked. First time I went to the market. I love to go to the local markets when I visit places. And the type of fruits I never seen in my life. I'm like, what is this? I didn't even know what they are. So there's so much diversity there, so much biodiversity. And I think the type of food baskets, how we design that, should really be looking different. So I think, in other words, the multifunctional is to zoom out. And they look at how do we then produce food, take into consideration that landscape. How do we keep it? How we keep it the Amazon? How we keep it some of the very foundational things of the nature that we need to respect? That's the multifunctional landscape, in my opinion. You need to be looking this before you actually zoom in to say, now I need to help farmers to produce these types of foods, these communities to assess these types of foods in these different interventions. And I need this type of policies to actually help to incentivize how we go about that. So again, for me, I'm simplifying, and if I'm simplifying in a way that does not fit with your way of vision, please get me and correct my course here. But I think, for me, the excitement of multifunctional landscape is the opportunity for us to look at this in the broad scheme before we zoom out, and to really inform us with science evidence how we actually go about addressing food security in these multifunctional landscapes, different that we have across the globe. Thank you. Thank you for coming today.
Okay, thanks again. Thanks, Sandra. Thanks all. So now this is, I think, the end of the program. So we'll have break, and after 30 minutes, we'll continue upstairs in room 3. 9. More detailed discussion, interaction, question and answer, including the questions you sent, will be discussed there. So we have facilitation group that are facilitating the discussion. So thank you so much once more, and see you soon. Thank you.